This week on Media Delta. If you were to ask who is the most iconic cartoon character of all time, there would probably be two proper answers: Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny. Since his debut in 1937, Bugs Bunny has served as the head character of the Looney Tunes and has been the star player in the franchise since. Bugs and his counterparts like Daffy Duck and Porky Pig's most culturally striking appearance was, without a doubt, the Merry Melodies series of shorts, including classics like What's Opera Doc, Duck Amuck, and Rabbit Fire. In 1979, a compilation film with the working title The Great American Chase was made, combining several of these shorts interwoven with segments discussing the history of the prevalence of chasing in these shorts and the history of the creation of Bugs and Friends. Since the advent of video games, the Looney Tunes have served as prime candidates for settings for several video games throughout the years. But do they hold a candle to the original Merry Melody shorts? Let's find out as we discuss the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie. Hello and welcome to another episode of Media Delta. We are talking about something pretty big, I guess, in terms of things that we can look at. Because over the many episodes that we've done Retro Rank Rhapsody, we have done quite a number of games from this property. So it is kind of interesting to kind of pick about, okay, we've done a lot of Looney Tunes, but what Looney Tunes thing would you take a look at in order to start with, in order to cover the most ground? And what I chose to take a look at was a kind of, calling it a movie is kind of weird, but essentially what it is, we are taking a look at the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie. And I am not alone to take a look at this. So, going in alphabetical order, who do I have with me? I think
Rafferty.
Wow, I'm looking. I had to look for him. Wow, I'm first. Yes, hello, I'm Norman Rafferty.
I'm PortableStove, and actually for Christmas, I got a set of the Looney Tunes Golden Collection. So I guess that worked out well.
I'm TorpidTypist, and I refuse to fucking call this a movie because it's a collection of shorts, goddammit.
I mean, yes, that is what it is. So the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie, which originally was apparently going to be called The Great American Chase. I guess they called it the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie, just kind of like, hey, it's something that has Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner movie in it. Come watch it. Give us money. But yes, this came out in 1979, and it is exactly what Torpo mentioned. It is mostly a collection of Bugs Bunny shorts with a compilation of Roadrunner bits at the very end.
There's also a Pepe Le Pew.
Yes, there is. We'll get to that.
And a Daffy one.
Oh, right. There's also a few Daffy ones. But yes, they all... yeah, I guess before... I guess we are going to follow our normal kind of question format, in which I have 10 questions that we will be asking, or I will be asking, and we'll kind of go in alphabetical order, and then once the next question goes, we kind of go in. So, Rafferty, you'll be first up to answer. What was your favorite short? Or if someone else has mentioned your short, what was a short that you enjoyed? So just to kind of go over the shorts that they have in this, the ones that go through this are Rabbit Seasoning, Hairway to the Stars, Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century, Robin Hood Daffy, Duck Amuck, Bully for Dugs, Alibaba Bunny, Rabbit Fire, For Sentimental Reasons, Long-Haired Hare, What's Opera Doc, and Operation Rabbit.
You mean just the Bugs Bunny shorts? So I can't pick the Roadrunner part.
Well, the Roadrunner bit is kind of like, I guess they kind of take bits and pieces from various other ones, because let's see, they got for Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, they have Beep Prepared, Fast and the Furious, Gee Whiz, Going Gosh, Guided Muscle, Hip Hip Hurry, Hop Along Casualty, Hot Rod and Reel, Scrambled Acres, or Scrambled Aches. Oh, Scrambled Eggs. Okay.
There's a lot of them to read. It's really one big super cut, which makes it difficult because they cut them up and spliced them.
Yeah.
A lot. So, but no, I'm gonna be like the hipster and go out on a limb here. And my favorite's Long-Haired Hare, was the one where Bugs Bunny plays a banjo next to the opera singer, and then the opera singer, they get in a fight, and it ends with this bizarre Bugs Bunny being a conductor, and in disguise, and so weird and so bizarre. But it's also it's that best mix of Warner Brothers where it's both understated and ridiculous at the same time. It just has that sense of pacing that even though like we don't get the joke about Leopold, like he's disguised as Leopold, and everyone, Leopold, oh my God, Leopold's here. And it's just this slow build that I think is I mean, all the shorts in this are really good, but that's one I would pick because it's not like everyone always goes for that. That's one that I've always enjoyed because it's just so uniquely Warner Brothers.
Yeah, that's a really good short. Yeah, and also apparently the Leopold in question is based on a real person, Leopold Anthony Stokowski or Stokowski.
Right. I mean, there's lots of jokes in there. I mean, they ended on a Burt Reynolds joke for crying out loud, but I think it's just that just stands alone. You don't need a lot. It's just genuinely funny out of the situation. I really love it.
Yeah. Just a tiny note about that I found funny, and I wonder if that was one. I kind of doubt it, but I think it's kind of slightly really funny if someone did think of this. I wonder if they used Leopold because it is, I mean, it's Bugs being it, and Leopold is very close to Leoprid, aka the classification that includes I think that is both bunnies or rabbits and hares.
I don't know. I do know that that's one of the shorts that like Chuck Jones would point out that like Bugs Bunny is a very powerful character, and the fact is that like he's basically invincible. He can pull disguises out of nowhere, order weapons over the mail when he needs them, and they actually work. And so in his biography, Chuck-a-Muck, Chuck Jones was to point out that he always thought that the Bugs Bunny has to be an aggrieved party in the first place. So even though he's playing the banjo, his neighbor Giovanni escalates it. And so it turns into a long, drawn-out revenge is a dish best served cold revenge. And there's a lot of cartoons that would come later that kind of forget that, you know, you're supposed to be, you know, punching up instead of punching down. And so a lot of the shorts that would come out later in the 90s forget a lot of that. So there we go. That's my history.
All right. So Stove, is there one you want to call out?
What is? I guess I'll be the opposite of a hipster and just straight up say Duck-a-Muck. Just like it's the one where Daffy Duck is just slowly being tortured by an animator, and is being placed in different backgrounds, having the scenery changed on him. Basically, the animator, quote unquote, is refusing to do a cartoon. And in the end, it's just Bugs at the desk just messing with Daffy the entire time. That one is just always super good. I really
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, seconded.
Yep. So Torpo.
I'm gonna say fuck, I forget the name of it, but it's the one where Daffy's Robin Hood.
That is Robin Hood Daffy.
Yeah, Robin Hood Daffy. Wow, I'm fucking good at this. It's just some really fucking good slapstick, and honestly, also seeing Porky take the ever-loving piss out of him the entire time is deeply satisfying because it's not something you see Porky do all that much.
Yeah, that was something I did. That was kind of weird. I'm like, oh, I'm surprised they cast Porky as that, but I guess he would be the character to be Friar Tuck.
Yeah. No, I thought it was just really good and just really, really fun and really enjoyable. And it's some really good slapstick, as I said before.
The kind of the problem that I have, or that with a lot of these, though, is just due to how much they've become ingrained into our culture, is I always think of the byproducts of some of these. Robin Hood Daffy has that scene where it is Daffy trying to swing from tree to tree and hitting like 5 trees on the way down to where he needs to be. And I just remember there being a gif of when Kingdom Hearts 3 was coming out of like saying, oh, hey, I'll just get into Kingdom Hearts. And then basically him starting out the base and then hitting every single release of Kingdom Hearts along the way.
All for the build up to 3. Yeah, no, it's a good gif. It's a really good gif.
Also, because I when we were watching it, or because we were in the same group watching it, we were joking about how much this is basically Or it's basically, you can also say this is the best approximation of being a Dark Souls player.
He was though.
Yoinks
Repeatedly.
and away.
Pretty much. It's just how
Jolly good.
many things could just come out and just screw you over.
It's a good short. It's a good short.
It's really good.
Let's see. I'm just trying to think.
Also, I was gonna say real quick though, is I kind of like Daffy a bit more than Bugs because Daffy is such a mess.
That is
Like he's not untouchable like Bugs is. He just will fuck up consistently.
yeah. That
Can
that
still
is
come
pretty
out on
good.
top, but will still fuck up repeatedly.
Yeah.
Right, like this one includes the Alibaba Bunny, contrasts Bugs, Daffy. So that's also that sort of dynamic where Daffy's allowed to screw up.
Yeah.
I got tape.
Yep.
We'll get there.
Let's see. So for me to pick, just trying to think. I guess I'll go for the basic one. What's Opera Doc? Is still a classic.
Yeah.
So good.
So I think there was a book that came out by, I'm trying to find the name of it, but the book was essentially the 50 greatest cartoons, and I want to say like of the however many they're in here, I think like half of them are in pretty high on that, and I believe What's Opera Doc is number 1 on that. It just holds up really well, especially for them trying to like actually somewhat tell the ring cycle through Looney Tunes. And apparently I was reading up that they actually did pretty extensive research for this cartoon, including bringing in like actual dancers who would actually like perform the ring cycle. And yeah, it's just really good. And the spear magic helmet is just stuck into my head.
Yeah, the best parody has to come from a place of love, and so you could tell that they really did enjoy opera.
Yeah, they definitely did their research. Very good. So if those are the ones that we particularly liked, what was a short that you had thoughts on, and why was it how Pepe Le Pew is generally aged like fine milk? Starting with Torpo.
God damn it! You beat me to it. I was gonna say Pepe Le Pew is a giant sack of turds.
Yeah.
I feel like Pepe Le Pew is just like this lowest hanging fruit we can probably come up with for this one.
I stand by it though. I got first dibs, and this is what I'm taking. Fuck all of you.
Fair enough.
All right. So you want to elaborate?
Pepe Le Pew is fucking sexually harassing, sexually assaulting piece of shit who attacks this cat who he thinks is a skunk. Like, it's pretty straightforward, actually. And also, they turn the tables, but it's still not funny.
Yeah, they turned the tables because Pepe lands in a thing of blue paint, and somehow the cat is attracted to that.
But you see, she's ugly now because she's completely soaked and no longer has the paint stripe.
Yeah. Also,
So, see, this is why it's funny that she's still doing the same shit.
Also, there is that part where the cat locks herself in a thing so that Pepe can't get in there, and then Pepe just brings out a gun and shoots himself in the head.
Yeah, that was fucked up. The suicide bit.
Yeah.
There's like
But then
two
he's like,
suicide notes in this.
gotcha! Didn't shoot myself, idiot! Now I gotcha!
I'm like, wow.
Bad.
It honestly stunned me because I forgot about the second one. I knew about the first one, but like, cool. There's just straight up 2 suicide jokes in here. All right, you sure did that.
After like these were on Saturday morning, like as short subjects for a long time, and there was a hullabaloo like in the late '80s when they started editing, chopping bits like that out before they aired them for kids.
Yeah, I don't remember that bit ever being in there because I just watching that just kind of.
You watched it.
Yeah, I just kind of I was watching that with like my mouth open, just like wow. I was kind of expecting because there's the whole thing. It's like you in hindsight, unless you watch it a bit or like I bet that you realize kind of the subtext behind a lot of these cartoons, and it's like, oh wow, yeah, that's right. This came out in the 50s, didn't it?
Yeah, because it's making fun of kind of short subject or short movies like this, the Mashers or Wolves. That was okay in the 1900s, but not so much today.
Yeah,
this is not a cartoon for kids.
No. Yeah. So, Stove, you got something?
So it was brought up a little bit earlier, and this is the only other one I could think of besides Pepe Le Pew, is Alibaba Bunny, which it was fine, but also like just kind of the stereotypical beats of you know, 1001 Arabian Nights, and here's a genie, and here's Hassan Chop and everything. Also, just like I do agree that I do like Daffy more than Bugs, but I do not like. I think maybe just for whatever reason, I just do not like this Daffy Duck anymore. Like, I don't know what it is. Just like it's kind of grating after a certain point.
It's kind of a simple characterization at that point.
Yeah, because like in earlier Looney cartoons, like all over the place, he's a really crazy mixed up duck and whatever. Yeah, he's Daffy Duck. And when he's opposite Bugs in general, he has to be the selfish miser duck, and it's not that great in my opinion. I like Daffy on his own, or you know, bouncing off a Porky Pig, but yeah, just not really with. Okay, not with Bugs, but Elmer has to be there, I guess, for it to work. As seen in a different short in this.
Yes. All right. So, Rafferty, is there anything you want to bring up?
I gotta echo once again the Pepe Le Pew short. Definitely the low point, because even though it's like the opposite of What's Opera Doc, because they're trying to make fun of the situation, but not only do you have the you know, the weird overtones of the kind of chase, like what's he actually getting at? What's his end goal here? Is using her down, it's going to get her. But then there's also that little bit in front where they make fun of the French language and have some over-the-top stereotypes, which is a good performance from Mel Blanc, but also I don't think aged well at all. So really, it's really the low point of all of these. Everything else is aged really well, not this part.
Yeah, I think it's just the content of the other parts of the short just kind of put that in like a complete shadow. But yeah, now that you mentioned that, I do remember that. The one thing that I wanted to point out, it's something that I noticed, and I don't know if it's, I'd imagine it's in other versions, is I was able to tell like quite a number of continuity errors, or maybe not continuity errors, but just kind of errors in coloring. Like, especially during, I believe it was Alibaba Bunny. There were certain points in which Hassan's teeth were colored like the same colors as skin, and then other times it was colored white. Also, I would just see like little bits like Bugs's hand would change, like they would like not color in the tips of his gloves occasionally.
Oh yeah, you can watch the I mean, these shorts are over like 40 years. So you can kind of like watch the budget slowly go down as the cartoons go on. And yeah, Alibaba Bunny is I would agree, has some very sloppy choices.
Yeah, and it was just something that I noticed. I think this was like one of the first times I was able to notice like in an animated thing. I was like, wow, I can actually like tell like the flaws in like the cells, like the individual frames of animation. But yeah, I'll say even with that, it still doesn't ruin a whole lot of the enjoyment. I mean, they're still humorous nonetheless. It's just interesting to kind of see that kind of thing in a theatrical production. So I think we kind of covered this in the kind of the first two questions, but how do you feel about the characters and like their portrayals like in this? Like, and maybe kind of make an addendum for this, like especially how compared to these characters kind of are now. Like, how do you feel like going back to these shorts? Like, how do you feel that they hold up in terms of characters?
What do you mean now? There's been quite a few iterations since then.
Well, just trying to think.
Because like the characters are pretty moribund, and then Space Jam happened. And I mean, the characters were actively retired from Tiny Toons era, which a response to the violence in the shorts. Like when Tiny Toons came out, Steven Spielberg did a big speech. It's not going to be violent; it's going to be safe for children. But then Space Jam comes out, and then there was the Looney Tunes show, which was the Brant and Cervone thing, and then they went into Wabbit, and now there's another Looney Tunes show, and then there was the movie Back in Action. There's all sorts of different interpretations that are slightly different from each one. So which interpretation were you thinking of?
I was thinking probably Space Jam on, like just in general, not a particular. Just trying to think how to phrase it. Like,
because the Looney Tunes show, when that came out, that made Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and they were trying to soften Bugs Bunny a little and make Daffy Duck kind of a wacky roommate. And honestly, I mean, I'm just gonna say I think the '50s portrayals, like even Alibaba Bunny, which I know could wear out its welcome, back when they were characters inserted in short subjects doing crazy stuff, like with Robin Hood Daffy, you really buy that Daffy wants this duck, or Duck Dodgers, he's really just doing this bit. Later iterations start to get into that kind of meta humor that they were kind of enjoying, or they want to drop references to themselves as being celebrities or to pop culture references. It even starts showing up in some of the newer bits in this newer movie. And that takes a lot of the timelessness out of it. Instead of just being characters in a humorous situation, squeezing humor out of it, it becomes a lot more meta and talky. And so I personally prefer this classic.
All right. Stove, you have anything to add on that or your own thoughts?
So just kind of kind of as Rafferty said, there's been a lot of I know you're saying like up to Space Jam. There since then there have been a lot of Looney Tunes. So there's a like Looney Tunes series on Boomerang, and then there's another new Looney Tunes coming after that one. So yeah, it's kind of weird, just kind of based on who's directing them at that point in time, or who's directing the cartoons essentially. Personally, like there's just something about, because Chuck Jones is very good at what he does, but there's just something about like how he portrays the invincible Bugs Bunny, and like how, sometimes like was said earlier in the 90s, Bugs is more punching down than punching up. There's a recent Looney Tunes short that comes to mind that is actually really bad. I don't think it was ever released. It was really bad. Essentially, I do like the classic Looney Tunes. My biggest issue, though, I guess, is that for me, I like the Looney Tunes even more, like going further back, like when they're kind of in that figuring things out process with the character. In this case, it's kind of more, during the 50s, they kind of have everything figured out, so it's good, but there's just more that I like going further back. That's just kind of how I am.
All right, Tarpo, you have anything to add?
I mean, I don't know. I enjoy the old stuff, but I at least enjoy the Looney Tunes show, I think it was called, where they're roommates. I thought that was perfectly okay. Except for one specific character was a huge problem. But otherwise, I thought it was pretty chill. Also, Daffy the Wizard's a fucking gift, and I'll fight anyone.
Yeah, actually, I did like the Looney. Like, actually, most Looney Tunes things after Space Jam have been, after Back in Action has been pretty, I think.
I do agree though that there, for a good while, like Looney Tunes show at least tries to make Bugs more fallible, but for much of the stuff, it is definitely a case of Bugs punching down, and also just being really smug and self-assured more so than the older stuff. If that makes sense.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, but I don't want to.
Yep.
Also, I enjoyed Daffy as a hot mess of a roommate.
Yeah.
Some of that's pretty good. I think there's some good writing there, but like you said, there's also some problematic bits that were just kind of a little off message. The Wabbit show I enjoyed a lot more because the Wabbit, I think, was a throwback to the classic to how the show should.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it runs the gamut is basically my point. Space Jam's not particularly good. Back in Action, which I have rewatched not too long ago, is pretty foul. And yeah, it's just it's all over the place, but that's what you get when you have so many hands.
Okay. So, next question is how, and maybe I'll just phrase it like this. Like, I noticed that a lot of these shorts are like 7-10 minutes. How do you feel about the amount of content that they have in those, like how they're able to pack so much into that short amount of time? Because I felt like there was a lot that was in those, like the shorts felt longer than they were in a good way, I felt. But Torpa, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, they took that fucking ramrod and jammed that shit in there. Like, it is packed full. And I do like the little interjections, like here and there from Bugs, like in between the bits. Those are always nice. Also, hearing Mel Blanc talk about Mel Blanc is always fun. But yeah, no, I feel like the bits in between help pace it out a bit better than it would have been if it was just like this constant stream. But overall, it was really good. It was full of content. but was as long as it needed to be.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. Just like in terms of the length of the cartoons themselves, they get so much done, and it just feels like, oh, really? That was only like 5 minutes. It felt like it was longer, which in this case, hey, that's a good thing. But yeah, I definitely like the flow of the thing in general, and how it feels like they're able to pack in so much into the shorts, and then even as well, the yeah, kind of as Torpo said, the wraparounds with Bugs. Like it doesn't feel unnatural. Like, of course, it's just him presenting, here's another cartoon, but it's done in a pretty decent way, I think.
The Bugs Bunny retrospective.
Well, I think something that's like very good about the Warner Brothers cartoons, like later animators really wanted to show off and they want to like do like the characters going gonzo and bug-eyed. But in Warner Brothers cartoons, especially Chuck Jones ones, they'll take their time and spread it out. Like, what's Opera Doc wouldn't be as impressive if it wasn't for the background art, where they just slowly pan over stuff and they show like characters wandering around these giant sets. Bugs Bunny rides the horse for like, almost a minute. The Duck Dodgers goes to Planet X, and of course, we're gonna see every freaking letter of the alphabet. Planet L, Planet M. It's the way they paced it so well that there was time to breathe in between the laughs, and you felt like you could take it in, which is, I think, what makes them feel a little bit longer, is that they have that sort of pacing thing. They don't feel like they have to do something every single minute, and they don't feel like they have to be talking all the time. It's an old school conceit that, like some of the better anime, just lets you sit there and breathe.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I do like how content dense these are, but still feel pretty good. So we've kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. But yeah, as we mentioned, that a lot of these were done during the 50s. So how do you feel that the age of these cartoons has affected your enjoyment even to today?
Oh, well, we have come here to bury Pepe Le Pew, not to praise him. But like I said, I think they are a really good time capsule to some of the stuff that was typical. Like Robin Hood Daffy is definitely Errol Flynn. Like, anybody who saw this in the 50s, they would have seen a gazillion Robin Hood by now. There would have been the Robin Hood cinematic universe for them to experience, or for Alibaba Bunny and that sort of thing. Or for Duck Dodgers, they a bunch of Flash Gordon shorts and serials. So this is kind of a window into a pop culture thing that doesn't exist anymore. But like we said earlier, they still made it timeless enough that we can still enjoy it today. So I think, when people say you couldn't get away with this today, it's like the newer stuff, like people enjoying, like the Looney Tunes show. Daffy the Wizard is, of course, making fun of 70s and 80s type conceits. So, that was more modernization. And so I guess you could say, like, they couldn't do this again today, but not because, of bad subject matter, but so much as in the thing that they're really making a lot of fun of. Like, a lot of those tells just aren't what expected.
Yeah. Like, I don't think that anyone outside of people who like research old sci-fi would even know who Buck Rogers is and how Duck Dodgers is a direct parody of them. But yeah, I still felt like even that short in particular was still enjoyable today because the general conceits are still there. So yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. So, Stove, you got any thoughts?
Honestly, it just boggles my mind how timeless Looney Tunes can be, aside from Pepe Le Pew. Like, in general, even if you don't get some of the references, or in my case, I've never seen an opera in my life, but I still really like What's Opera Doc. Like, there's so much to just enjoy in Looney Tunes itself that it's amazing that it typically stands the test of time. Okay, this is really funny. I don't understand what they're saying. I don't understand some of the jokes or some of the references, but it's still really, really good. And you can tell that it's always got a lot of love put into it, in terms of basically showing off and kind of how the jokes go. Plus, like, some things you feel like as we go on in the future, you're gonna like forget about, like bullfighting, maybe. You're like, well, okay, that's a weird thing I don't know about in like 20 years, but I could still go back and say that bullfighting Bugs Bunny short is still really funny.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So that's what I got.
So, Torpo?
What was the question again? Just to be
How
sure.
do you feel that the age of these cartoons has affected your enjoyment even to today?
I mean, I think a lot of them have aged fairly gracefully. Some that lean harder into certain racial stereotypes, not so much. And Pepe Le Pew should fucking rot in hell where he belongs.
Yeah.
But otherwise, a lot of it's just really timeless. Like, yeah, even without cultural context, it still really, really holds up. Like, Duck Dodgers is still really good and really funny and really enjoyable.
Yes.
Despite, yeah, not having any fucking clue about that background.
Yep.
And like even as a kid, I enjoyed the hell out of these, despite not knowing like where they came from. Essentially,
Yeah, like we
'Cause
would,
it's just-
especially our generation, would not be familiar with Errol Flynn and all that. That's something we
because
would
they
have had to look.
just funny.
Yeah.
They were just funny.
Yeah.
That's all they needed to be.
Mm-hmm. So I think Torpo alluded to this earlier, but what do you think of because the way that this movie's framed is that in between the shorts, there are the little interstitial moments where Bugs is walking through his house. How do you feel those? Like, I know, Torpo, you mentioned that you really enjoyed those. So is there anything else you would want to say to those?
So I wouldn't say really enjoyed. I thought they worked and they were good because they didn't try too hard to be funny and they just let the various bits, the various shorts speak for themselves. Instead, just kind of helped pace things out a bit better.
Yeah.
And once again, I enjoy fucking Chuck Jones stroking off on camera, and also once again Mel Blanc talking about Mel Blanc.
Yes.
Fucking rest.
So Stove, what'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're fine for what they are, which is basically just a way to introduce a new cartoon to the audience. I do kind of like the idea of Bugs Bunny just being in this big ass mansion and just recounting the days of yore. When also one thing that I actually do like as well is them trying to set up the idea for the movie itself, which is it being about chasing. So I did kind of like that little bit of animation in the beginning, and then some shots of silent movie. But in general, like, yeah, I found those to be fine. They were pretty funny in terms of just kind of Bugs riffing on some of the tropes of Looney Tunes, like saying, hey, you know, it's weird that some of the animators don't know the difference between a rabbit and a mole. I got a kick out of some.
Yeah, I would. The Looney Tunes guys made a whole bunch of these that were clips after. Like, this is a pilot program they made one. This one is easily the best. If you've never seen Looney Tunes cartoons before, I would definitely open with this as like the supercut, because I think it shows them at their best, and it's just a great sampling of everything. So I definitely.
Yeah, I do like how they is there any other Looney Tunes character that you would like to see get this kind of treatment of having a movie kind of focused around them, like how Bugs Bunny was mostly focused on in this?
I would say no, because they pretty much did everybody. Eventually, Speedy Gonzalez.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. As much as like you might see this as like little interstitials to introduce it, the movie was at the perfect time because home video didn't exist yet. It's 1979. By the time home video and these days digital distribution, like you talking about getting stuff on Amazon for crying out loud, you can just go ahead and pick and choose and see the shorts in their original prison and see which ones you want, which ones you don't. I'm not really convinced like we really either make new stuff like the Wabbit Show or just watch the originals. I don't think this framing device is really that necessary.
All right.
Yeah, and yeah, kind of piggybacking off of that, there really isn't. The only Looney Tunes character I can think of that I would have liked to see a kind of a movie based off of, like based around just showing some of their cartoons in general, would just be Porky Pig, if only because he was the very first like Looney Tunes star, and there's probably a lot of super old Porky that many people haven't seen. And yeah, most of like super popular ones have already had their own movies, like Daffy Duck had his, and yeah, Speedy Gonzalez had his as well. And Bugs has had 3, I think. So yeah, I would just say probably just Porky, if anyone.
Torpo?
Honestly, there doesn't really need to be one. As Rafferty says, like they covered all their bases. It was essentially a best of thing anyway. Yeah, certain characters didn't quite get their time in the limelight, but overall, I don't think any sort of other character covered like this, especially because Bugs has always been the face, like for the longest time, I should say.
Yeah.
I can definitely agree though. There doesn't need to be a contemporary. I'm just in the like time period that would have been nice, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in the early years, they really thought Porky Pig was a breakout character.
Yeah. So the reason we're taking a look at this is because we've taken a look at a lot of games that are based off of the Looney Tunes, and I was just wondering, especially like just going back to some of these shorts. Do you feel that Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner kind of got the games that kind of fit them most? Because of the games I think we've ranked so far, if I can think of off the top of my head, I believe we have ranked Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle, Bugs Bunny's Lost in Time, Looney Tunes Collector Alert, the arcade game Roadrunner. I think that's all the ones we've ranked so far. But we've done quite a number of Looney Tunes based games. And do you feel that Bugs Bunny kind of got the game that kind of fits them the most, or Roadrunner?
See, this is a tough one just because of the fact that it is a property that has been around for a long fucking time, and there have been a million fucking games made of them, and I honestly cannot say for certain yes or no because there's been a lot of crap.
Yeah, because like I think the closest one that we've gotten is probably the Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. The platformer is made by Behavior. I think that one actually kind of it was mostly a generic platformer, like not generic. It was mostly like a box standard platformer, but it did feel like it had the feel of the show, or like feel of the shorts done pretty well. That's kind of at least of the ones I'm thinking off the top of my head.
Yeah, of like going based off of those ones, I would say probably Lost in Time is about the only one I can think of that definitely Bugs gets the game that fits him the most. I can't really think of many other, like outside of the games that you've ranked, many other Looney Tunes games that do kind of go over different types of like hijinks that Bugs can get into. And in terms of Roadrunner, unfortunately there's only like one other game that I've played with the Roadrunner in it, and it is not great. That being Death Valley Rally, which, yeah, it's a game where Roadrunner goes fast and tries to evade the coyote, but it still doesn't feel like a proper Roadrunner and coyote game.
Yeah, because that's the thing about the Roadrunner arcade game that I felt was kind of weird, is that if I were to play as like if I were to be either of the two, either Roadrunner or Wile E. Coyote, I feel like it'd be more entertaining to be Wile E. Coyote, to kind of try and get the trap to actually capture the Roadrunner. Like I thought the Roadrunner was more of a tool or like a thing to get around, and not the. I always thought that Wile E. Coyote was the star of those.
There's your Dark Souls alike right there.
I do know that there is a Roadrunner and Coyote game on the Genesis where you can play as Wile E. Coyote. I just have never played it myself personally, and I don't know how well that works.
Man. While we were talking, there must be iPhone, because the game that occurred to me that would be the best fit would probably be an Endless Runner game. And of course, there is an Endless Runner game, but for some reason, Bugs Bunny is in.
Yeah.
And it actually ends. So I'm confused. I would have thought like a Wile E. Coyote Endless Runner would have been perfect, because you're not supposed to catch the Roadrunner. But no, I would. I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that if I had to pick any game that came anywhere close to what a Bugs Bunny game, it would be Taz, which is not a very good game, but at least the idea that you play this bumbling idiot who wanders around and lashes out violently could, in theory, be an interesting game if you're going to go old school platformer. I think, and then I would go a little bit and suggest that you guys have heard of Toonstruck, right? We haven't done Toonstruck yet?
No, we have not. Oh,
okay.
Yeah, that game.
That's a game that exists.
It's a game that exists, and I think the humor of it comes a little close, because that's a game where Christopher Lloyd plays a live-action character who reacts to a bunch of anime. At least have him reacting. But no, it's not. It's got problems too, because it's a point and click. And I'm, like I said, I'm not really sure what kind of game would really approach that. The 16-bit era had the platformers. I don't think point and click would work. maybe a spy versus spy game where you and several other Looney Tunes characters planted booby traps for each other. Because Spy versus Spy, I think, is underrated. But I don't think there really has been like it was already mentioned here. The property's been around forever, and it's just been slapped on something that was hastily assembled the last minute. It doesn't. They're really unless there's a gem we haven't seen yet. There hasn't been a game.
The only game that I'd want to bring up, especially talking about the Roadrunner, there is a game on the Commodore 64 called Cliffhanger, which is essentially it's framed as you are I don't know if you're a sheriff or a deputy trying to capture a bandit in like the desert, but it is essentially a Wile E. Coyote game in which you are Wile E. Coyote and you are presented with a bunch of traps, and it's entirely timing based. And it's a pretty interesting game. It's a bit wonky to play, but I do want to do that at one point, and I do feel like that actually does kind of capture that. But I think that is the I could.
Oh
think
yeah,
of.
I would agree with you there. It's definitely got that old school cartoon vibe. I've seen that.
Yeah, but and from Bugs Bunny's point of view, yeah, the Lost in Time's the only one I could think of. If I were to think of any other game like style that I could think of, the only other one I could oddly enough think of is if you made a competent Bubsy game. It kind of almost has that feel like it's trying to go for, but I mean, Bubsy came out the way it did, so therefore that did not.
Yeah, I just had a thought like in the back of my head in terms of what could actually make a semi-decent 16-bit Bugs Bunny game. And honestly, the inspiration I have for it is just either it's Haunting starring Poltergeist or Home Alone, where you're instead just like, again, kind of like Wile E. Coyote setting traps, but also just kind of getting back at somebody by basically just fucking with them. Like, here's this, we put dynamite in your flower pot. Here's that. Like, here's a gun here, even though obviously you can't do that in a Looney Tunes game these days. Basically just...
Wait, I got a quick answer. You guys ever seen Kill the Fool?
No, I have not.
No.
It's a mode in LucasArts Outlaws and was later in the Dark Forces game where it's kill the person who has... It's a deathmatch where like an object like a chicken would drop, and then whoever grabs it, a timer starts. It's your score of how long you collect it, and then everyone is out to murder you. And I was just thinking, like, when you just mentioned what you just did, Stove, that a game like that where whoever is holding the MacGuffin, everyone else wants to maniacally kill that one person, and then as soon as they drop it, there's that pause of who gets it next, and then runs off with it. Something that had a really fast turnaround like that would be good. Besides Outlaws and the Dark Forces games, I haven't seen that mode.
Yeah. So before we rank, last question that I have is, we've seen all these games. Do these games actually do like any sort of, like, do you feel like they do anything to kind of make you want to watch the cartoons? Like, which would kind of bring you more enjoyment to the Looney Tunes? Like, after watching these series, like, do you feel the games make you want to watch the Looney Tunes cartoons?
Maybe me for nostalgia, but Bugs Bunny, The Curious Castle or Magic Castle, is that the Game Boy one?
Bugs Bunny and the Crazy Castle.
Crazy Castle, right? A lot of these games, like at the time, just felt to me like this, like you said with Bubsy, this is just a boring platformer, and I wouldn't even be paying attention to it if it didn't have the license. And I mean, usually licensed games didn't make me want to see the property. They were just, it became a joke to stay away from licensed stuff. So I guess I would kind of say no. Like I don't think they, like, after playing them, I'm not excited. It's not like, say, Left 4 Dead, which makes me excited to go see Zombieland.
That's a fair point. So Stove.
It's kind of hard to say. Like, I don't think so, really, because kind of jumping off of the last question, there isn't really anything that captures the, like, feeling of Looney Tunes that makes me think, oh yeah, I should really go back and watch this particular short. If anything, it's more just kind of brand recognition. Like, oh, it's a Bugs Bunny game. This makes me want to go see a Bugs Bunny cartoon. That's pretty much all there is to it. And I wouldn't say it like any of the games do a good job selling me on the property as much as just going out and watching it.
All right. Turbo?
No. That's there you go. My answer.
All right.
No.
It's a good answer.
Legitimately, a lot of these games fucking suck.
Yeah.
So much. If I didn't already enjoy this stuff, it would be like, it's just fucking droves and droves of licensed crap.
Lolo, I am very much dreading the day that you play a Tom and Jerry game and we have to review a Tom and Jerry anything.
God,
It's
yeah.
like,
I mean, we've already done Simpsons stuff.
but the Simpsons movie is like okay.
Yeah, but the Simpsons so exist.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it is time to actually go and rank this. So, let's see. We rank these things based on a 1 to 21 scale, with 1 being what we consider mastercraft and 21 being considered absolute garbage. Going down in alphabetical order, Rafferty, what number scale would you?
I'm gonna feel bad about saying this. I would put this at a 2, because even though I think it's essentially short, and as much as I love Chuck Jones, and the fact that he's between them, I think you would get a little more out of either seeing the shorts individually or seeing a documentary. So it's almost but not quite perfect. So I can't put it at the pinnacle.
Okay. Stove?
Yeah, honestly, I would just go for 3, if only because some of the interstitials, like you can watch these on their own and they hold up, except for one of them, which extremely doesn't, and then even some of the other ones just kind of have little bits and just kind of wince at a little bit. But yeah, I would go maybe one down from that and just go to 3.
All right, Torpo?
Yeah, I'd agree. 3 is probably it. Like, the shorts themselves are really good. The bits in between are... Most of the shorts are really good, excuse me.
Yeah.
The in-between bits are fine, but, like, there is that fucking poison pill directly in the center, and it's like...
Yeah.
And also just some other stuff that hasn't aged amazingly.
Yeah, because I was thinking 2 or 3. I was thinking somewhere. I do feel these shorts held up really well for the most part. I do feel that 3 is probably a good thing because the way we have 1, 2, and 3 described, 1 is Universal Mastercraft, 2 is Niche Mastercraft, and 3 is Legacy Mastercraft. The reason that I have Legacy is for stuff that is basically, at the time, they were held like in super high regard. But as more stuff has come out, it's kind of been overshadowed a bit. Or it's just, we don't do that kind of stuff anymore. Or like there's things in it that kind of have aged. And I do feel that 3 is probably a good, which by the way, 3 out of 21 is still incredibly.
No, that sounds right.
Okay, so yeah, I think it belongs in, definitely it is the same place we put Dirty Pair Project Eden. This entry in Road Runner. Okay, so let's see, what genres do I have? Let's see, action, drama, slice of life, or I have a kids. I don't know if that fits though.
I would put this under comedy.
He doesn't have a comedy category because he's a fool.
Yeah, I need to
Then create a comedy category and put this in it.
Yeah, I'm doing that now.
Fucking A.
Also, I think whimsical is probably the definite thing to put in here.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
All right. So, is there anything we want to call out in music, charm, cinematography, story/theatrics, action, or artistry? In giving it like a thumbs up or thumbs down.
I would say give it a thumbs up for artistry. Just kind of like some of the animation and like What's Opera Doc is so gorgeous to look at. Like it's just really good altogether.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. One thing I'd probably say is give a thumbs up to charm because they're still very charming.
Yeah.
Yeah, even when they're throwing shade, because apparently they threw shade on Bob Clampett, leaving him out of many father categories.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, apparently it was a little feud, but yeah, the later ones are done by Free production department, and I guess because Free cheaper. The interstitials in this could be terrible, but and Chuck Jones's style had migrated a little bit in his late period. But I still think like the idea of putting Bugs Bunny in this giant Frank Lloyd Wright type house and all the decorations and having caricatures for the fathers instead of photos. They went to the source, and Chuck Jones really wanted to make what he was doing blend in with everything else. And it could have come off as a lot cheaper like the other later specials do. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty.
I would say the music, things like What's Opera Doc.
All right. These are merry melodies after all.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything we want to put in yay or nay?
Do you have is there a skunk emote.
There is not. I do have a notably aged poorly, but I don't have a thing to say, hey, it's just for this particular.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I do have something we can put in the content of that this is.
Yeah, yikes.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, there's that. Any other charms we want to put in? Do we want to put Made with Abundant Love?
It's kind of hard to say because it is pretty much just a man loving himself.
That is true.
Openly jerking on camera.
Okay, I'll leave it. Okay, yeah, I think we can leave it blank for yay and nay. So yeah, that is the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie. So before we finish, is there anything you would want to plug, Rafferty?
Oh yeah, so I'm Rafferty. I work for SanguineGames.com. We made a deep dive, one of those role-playing games, Dragons, Mad, where we talk a lot about cartoon history and that sort of thing.
Could you?
And it's going to be on sale.
Could you repeat that? You cut out a little bit.
Oh, sorry. The Madcap. We made a game called Madcap, which is a cartoon role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons, and it's going to be on sale this week. So if you want to pick up a copy, 50% off, go for it. It's on drivethrurpg.com.
All right. So, Stove.
I can be found at twitch.tv/stove. I really don't have anything else kind of to go over there. I do playthroughs of video games. I sometimes look through licensed games, including some Looney Tunes games. And yeah, that's pretty much what I got going on.
All right. And Torpo?
Twitch.tv/TorpidTypist. And I don't have a plug joke right now because I'm too tired to think of one.
That works. All right. Well, next episode, we will be discussing an OVA based on Panzer Dragoon, which I believe that was released with certain releases in Japan. I can't remember if it was a standalone release. But yes, that is what we'll be discussing next episode. So, thank you all for watching, and hopefully tune in for that one. This has been another episode of Media Delta. If you would like to view the entire list of rankings for yourself, you can go to r3.ldp.life to see the Resonance and Essence list that Media Delta covers, as well as the other lists that are covered by our sister show, Retro Rank Rhapsody. If you would like to watch Retro Rank Rhapsody, you can watch it live on Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on Twitch at twitch.tv/loadedpuzzlo. Or you can view any of the episodes anytime at youtube.ldp.life. If you would like to help with hosting costs, you can go to patreon.ldp.life and help out with a $2 or $5 pledge. If you would like to discuss this episode and any other episode of our community, you can join our Discord server at discord.ldp.life. If you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can follow it at Hazeltown Story, or you can follow me, your host, at LoloDePuzzlo. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come back for the next episode.